All right, are we ready to go? I'm just making sure that I can see. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for a panel where we're going to talk with a number of judges from this year's AMEC Awards to really get their perspective on what leads to a winning entry. So everybody can be walking out of the room with gold in years to come. I am Mary Elizabeth Germain. I will be your moderator today. I am the Chief Data and Strategy Officer at Ketchum. I am also head of the North American chapter in partnership with Jane Quigley. And I've been an AMEC member for as long as I can remember, 20 plus years. I think Ketchum has been part of the AMEC organization. And I've actually had the pleasure myself of judging the past few years. So I'm super excited to hear what this esteemed panel of colleagues has to say about the whole judging process. So we'll do a quick round robin of introductions. Kristen, why don't I start with you? You are top left on my screen.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Great to see everyone. I'm Kristen Stipik, Managing Director for the United States for Source Code Communications. I've been an AMEC member for about 4 years now and have been judging the past 2 years. So looking forward to chatting today with everybody.
Aldo?
Hello, everyone. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Aldo and Dietri, and I've been, I think, an active member of AMEC since 2017, when I was able to attend to the summit in Bangkok. And I'm the research and measurement manager for Edelman in Argentina. And I've been judging the AMEC Awards for the last 2 years. Well, it's always such an inspiring experience that we would like to share today.
Great. Vinay?
Hi, thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Hi, I'm Vinay Chana. I work at Lexington. We've just joined AMEC this year, formerly at Ketchum and H&K before, so well versed in the value of AMEC to the comms profession. So yeah, really enjoyed being a judge this year, and yeah, really excited to talk to everyone today.
And Richard?
Hi, Mary Elizabeth. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I'm Richard Bagnall. I have been a member of AMEC, dare I say it, since we started. So is that 28 years ago? I've been judging for a significant proportion of that time. I really don't know how far back it goes, but as far back as I can remember. I'm previous chair of AMEC. I was chair of AMEC for 6 years. I've led a number of our different initiatives, educational resources over that time. I've led many of the media intelligence businesses that will be names that perhaps you recognize. And along with my long-term business partner, Paul Hender, I've recently set up Comms Clarity Consulting as a strategic advisory firm on how to improve your measurement and evaluation at your organization.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for being here. Let's jump in. I want to start with some just observations that you had since most of you have judged for a couple of years. Really, what stood out to you this year? Like, as you dove into the pool of entries that you were evaluating, what stood out this year versus past that helped differentiate some of those winning campaigns? Aldo, why don't I start with you?
Thank you. Well, one thing that really stood out to me this year compared with last year, I think was the shift in the types of organization doing entries and submitting their cases. I think I'm obviously talking from the agency side, but I think sincerely I've been seeing more work coming from agencies, but also from in-house teams, rather than the past years where we see more work coming from media monitoring or media measurement companies. And I think this is not casual. I think we being inside the clients and being inside the strategy, could be or bring a fresh perspective to the entry, and knowing the business and the objective business of the client, I think is key to develop a campaign or a plan that could be data driven. I think a good example on that could be one of our campaigns that was called a Wild Algorithm, and that was developed for a wild live foundation that is called Ampara, and show how the data on social media and search listening can also create a campaign that could be powerful and impactful and really appeal to the audience. I think last year we see plan or campaigns that use data maybe to measure or to plan, but I think this year we could see more like a data-driven campaign actually. So I think that was the scenario this year.
Okay. Kristen, what about you? What did you see differentiated?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it felt like, and I think this is, part of what Aldo is speaking to, is just seeing more involvement by agencies, et cetera. So just the sheer number of submissions was a lot higher, it felt like, this past year versus the year before, which was great to see, right? And when you see more submissions just naturally, like, was it all tides rise the ships or whatever, where you just see then more quality, you're going to see a lot more competition. And so it was lovely to see just a lot more in that way. I think that there was a lot of stronger depth of the submissions too, more detail, a little bit better mapping to overall objectives, using data to prove out how the needle was moving for different campaigns. And I think also really using data to inform not just kind of the end of the program, the outputs, but really it felt like there was a lot more woven in at the beginning part for informing decision making. So moving away from that kind of gut instinct to prove out, and more about data to inform even the direction to begin with, which was really great to see.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, I think they're all great points. I mean, look, over the years, it's been an ongoing improvement, hasn't it? Things just get better and better each year. There are more awards entered each year. They get more competitive. The quality goes up. I mean, I think you can see it on our brilliant panelists today. You can see the interest that agencies are taking in winning these awards now, and the great work that they're doing. AMEC gives 2 platinum awards each year, and both of them this year were won by a PR agency, comms agencies, not media intelligence companies. And I think that's all part of the embracing that's going on in the industry, that and understanding that comms evaluation isn't just media intelligence. It's a lot more than just media evaluation. It goes way beyond that to the point I think Kristen was making about outputs, outtakes, outcomes. Moving down that value chain as well. So great stuff, great writing, better telling the story, better framing, and some better supporting materials as well. I think we shouldn't forget that for a judge, we do like to look at supporting materials, and there've been some good ones entered there too.
Yeah. Anything, Vinay, anything to add in terms of what your co-panelists just touched on?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the one thing that I'd add that probably hasn't been mentioned yet, but I think the thing that really surprised me was around kind of seeing the evidence of workshopping and that willingness of wider stakeholders, that idea that this isn't a process that's just run by analysts and the people who are hands-on with the data, but then also with end users as well. So people who are the comms leads within agency or on the client side, I think there was much more of an acknowledgement than I expected that around the importance of dashboards and the importance of measurement to the end user. So that was something that was really, really positive that I saw in a lot of the award submissions this year.
Great. Kristen, what did you see and I know you've done this for a couple of years, and Richard, I would love your perspective on this as being a judge for a longer piece of time, but are there any broad trends of what you saw year to year, people abandoning or adopting, that you were like, wow, this is like, I'm glad to see that this went away, and I'm glad to see that this came in?
I don't know if it was anything that like completely went away, but I will say something that was interesting is, I mean, we've been saying for a long time, impressions is a bit of a vanity metric, right? And like we're all kind of like, but impressions haven't gone away. But I think what I thought was really refreshing to see was just how much more we looked at other ways to measure things as well. So whether that's, looking at how things were trending on Google, whether it's looking at engagement, just looking at more ways that were beyond kind of your standard traditional PR kind of benchmarks of success. It was really nice to see that. It was nice to see more integration of, again, at the outset, awareness surveys so that we're benchmarking more. It felt like there's a lot more investment by organizations, whether it's agencies or in-house brands, in understanding the importance of, we have to first understand at the beginning of a program to even think about where we're going with the program. And I felt like that was something really refreshing and great to see, is just the importance of measurement and understanding the audience at the beginning, whether it's qualitative, or what have you. So I thought that was really great. I thought another interesting thing was the investment or use of dashboards. We've seen that throughout. Seeing more and more companies, especially at the agency side in some of the different categories, a lot more use of dashboards is kind of having that central hub of collecting data and being able to look at it. I think the caution there is, how are you differentiating it, or are you measuring the most important things, or are you just kind of, containing the fire hose and measuring everything? So I think that's, a caution, but something that was interesting to see, and see that people were focusing a lot more on that kind of single source of insight and truth.
Okay. Richard, would love your perspective here, just even not abandoning versus adopting in the past year, but what you've seen.
Yeah, so I think that's right. The impressions, the whole sort of counts and amounts, those big vanity numbers, they're still there, but they're starting to take more of a backseat as they're framed in context of the bigger picture. I think we're seeing campaigns that are that the measurement's more holistic. As Kristen was saying, it's that whole planning piece, the benchmarking, how can we know where we're going if we don't know, if we can't explain where we're starting from? How do we know if we've ever got there? What does that success look like if we haven't done that piece of benchmarking? So I'm seeing more of that, and that's good. I wouldn't say it's finished, that we're all at a certain level, but we're certainly on the way. And I think the AMEC framework has played a large part of that. Obviously, the structure of the award entries, they're quite tailored and reasonably prescriptive to help people shape their story. And it is there to help them think about setting out the objectives, and then, the challenge that was needed, and what they identified, and then what they actually did. Things that I'd still like to see go. It drives me mad as a judge when people mass enter the same entry word for word into multiple different campaigns. I think, do the judges a bit of a favor and make it relevant to that category that you're entering. Don't just to ping them all out into multiple categories and hope that you win them all.
Yeah, I do have to say, I think the way that people have shifted just from impressions is proof of like how the education across the industry is happening, whether you're a media intelligence company, whether you're an agency, how you're working with clients to kind of educate them on what is a vanity metric and what is a meaningful metric. I don't think impressions or volume it's ever going to go away, because it'll be time, because those higher ups in organizations, like a CEO still wants to hear, we got, 1 billion impressions. And it's like, but really, what does 1 billion impressions actually mean? Right. It's the context around all of that.
Right.
Vinay, anything that you saw that like really just stood out, either like that what you've seen in previous entries that you've done, or what you saw coming through as a judge this year, in terms of adoption of new things?
Of course. I mean, I think actually what I've noticed is there's been a much more wide-scale trimming down of objectives, which has been great for actually reading the submission. So whereas before, when people talked about, oh, this was about awareness, this was about driving this opinion with a particular audience, engagement, etc., I think with the award entries, I've actually seen a real targeted, like a real kind of focus on what the objective of each campaign is. And that understanding just seems to be inherent of the purpose of the campaign. And I think that really translates through in some of the award submissions. So I think that's what I've seen greater adoption of since, you know, from the days of writing awards and to kind of judging this year. And then I think the storytelling is brilliant. Like, I think some of the storytelling is really, really good. There's some really seasoned comms professionals, analysts who are really kind of selling their enthusiasm around the effect of these campaigns. So I think the storytelling really counts. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but really telling that business story and where the comms or where the evaluation sits within it.
Got it. So Richard started us down this path of frustration. So what do you think is either missing, or what's your biggest frustration as a judge? And Richard mentioned entering one campaign into every single category and not necessarily being selective about it and finding the right fit. Aldo, what would you add to that from either what was missing or what was frustrating to you?
Well, it's clear when a company tends to just to enter each category where could enter. I could talk from a personal view because a few years ago, working for Global News, a media monitoring company, we won like 14 shortlisting entries, but finally we only got a bronze. So apart from having my stakeholders very angry about that, I think you should take a clear strategy on what you are trying to achieve with an entry. You have to engage with the client before the client should know about the importance and relevance of the AMEC Awards. I think the entry should represent the engagement with the client, but also with from the company that is doing the entry about the relevance of the awards. So that could be the more frustrating thing. An entry that isn't the suitable one for the category.
Okay, Kristen, what about you? What do you think was missing, or what frustrated you? And the next question is going to be what's a basic table stake that was missing? So if you guys want to think both those questions through in the context of this.
I think, you know, definitely similar to Richard, the tailoring of submissions is certainly an important one, and something that I think is a ongoing issue when you're looking through them. I think another thing too is thinking through, and I think Aldo made good points about, you know, working closely with, if it's a client that you're submitting with, and making sure that you have a strong submission, that everyone's bought in on it. I think also determining the best time to submit something. And I know that we have with categories, and, you know, with every year's entries, there's time frames, but in some cases it felt almost like people were trying to submit when a campaign or an initiative wasn't completed or wasn't kind of even halfway through yet. So I understand, like, oh, this part's set up really well, I want to submit. And so, but it almost felt a little too premature because you just weren't far along enough yet. And I don't know if it was the desire to want to be able to submit it next year too, when you get all the final results in, but it felt a little too premature to kind of wait a little bit longer and maybe see, even if it's going to be an ongoing campaign, at least get a little bit further along in the time frame before submitting.
Okay. Vinay, what about you? Biggest frustration?
Frustration feels strong. Maybe I'm just being a bit too nice, but I think
I'm being direct.
Yeah. So one of the campaigns that Aldo actually referred to was the Ampara one, and something I really liked about that was around the kind of use of SEO and some of those digital measures and those intelligent assumptions on audiences, so that you make from that data set. I'm obviously biased. I'm fairly kind of well versed in digital kind of metrics and how that translates to impact and outcomes, et cetera. So I'm obviously a bit biased, but I think I'd love to see more of that. and that kind of the joining up of that with other traditional data sources that have been used, like audience polling, media, etc., etc. So I think that's something I'd like to see more of. And to Richard's point as well, I think showing your best visuals, I think that really helps to translate it. We did see that across kind of the lion's share, but I think when there weren't entries with visuals, I think that it just hindered things a little bit in terms of judging it.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Richard?
to the point on visuals, we all know that best practice isn't to go and see a client when they want to know about some work we've done for them. We don't go and present the entire report because you bore everyone to tears. So with your visuals, you know, select the data that you want to help the judges understand that tells your story. And I think, Vinay, you mentioned tell the story. You said it's all a bit hackneyed or say. I mean, I think telling the story is remains a critically important part of the work that we do, and frankly, in the broader PR and comms industry, is often overlooked. Too often, we just throw mud at the wall, and in terms of data, and hope that some of it will stick, without understanding what's the data that does tell that story, that helps us demonstrate our worth and our value. Frustrations. Don't be boring. Please don't be boring. We're humans. We're judges. We might be judges, but we don't want to be bored. We have to read a lot of these things. Try and write it in an engaging way for us. So and don't make silly mistakes in it. Run your spell checker, run your grammar checker, run your sentence checker. If your sentence is 3 lines long, it's too long. Make it shorter. Make it easier for us. To read. We've talked about lack of objectives, lack of benchmarks. There are some now that set that out clearly. We have a section asking for it, but people sometimes choose to ignore it. And I can't understand that. How can you ignore a category in the award entry that you're being asked about? And then my final pet peeve is really around people entering great PR campaigns because they're great PR campaigns, but they don't have any evaluation. We're not here to judge whether some creative idea was brilliant or not. We're here to see, was the strategic planning and evaluation world-class? That's what we're looking for. So I don't think we mind if you didn't have the greatest creative idea, but did you execute it well and did you demonstrate it well?
Yeah, with the impact. Yeah. And the other thing that I will add, just from my personal experience, is the strategy section. Your strategy should not be like 4 paragraphs long with 16 different methodologies that you use. The strategy should be a relatively pithy statement that talks about what you did and why you were doing it. That's just one of my frustrations as I read through this. The strategy often seems to, for some entries, go on for days. And it's like you get lost in what they were. You have the objectives already, so you've told us what you were trying to achieve. It's the how, and keeping that pithy. Okay. Any just very quickly basic table stakes that you guys feel were missing? I mean, you touched on, frustrations of things that you wished were in there, but any just like the most basic thing, I think spell check and grammar checks are like, that is a basic table stake. Anything else that is like that basic in form, Kristen?
I mean, I think, making sure that the metrics that are developed are carried throughout the submission, kind of to the point of having, when you set it up at the beginning, okay, well, give us the payoff. Did it work? What did you learn? Like, did it pivot? I think that's something that doesn't always come through in the submissions was, okay, where did we hit? And I think the other big thing too is to keep in mind that not everything, and this kind of goes back to the writing, right? And writing it in an interesting human way, but that this is about evaluation. And so not every change, when you're talking about behavioral change or change in something, has to be massive, right? I think sometimes people feel like to submit something, it's kind of when you put your creative hat on, where it has to be this massive, like, watershed moment. And the thing is like, changing people's perceptions takes time, and it's like little bits that you learn and you adapt then and continue to pivot to move change over time. So I think also being really thoughtful in when you're submitting things, like thinking about, did it have a change, and then what did we learn from that change, and how is it going to frame what we do in the future? So I think not always having to feel like it can't be a good submission if there isn't a major change.
Okay. Aldo, any basic table stake that you felt was missing?
Yeah, well, I think it's not so basic, but often it's missing. That could be a solid research conducted before the campaign or the plane begins. Um, and don't try to make happen the research after, in a way. No, when the research isn't done in advance, it shows. So you can see an entry where the strategy feels like disconnected with the outcomes that you are presenting. And in a way, in the AMEC Awards, we don't reward specifically for the creativity. That's clear. But I think when the research is done in a serious way, finally the plan or the campaign tends to be more effective. I couldn't remember a campaign with a wonderful measurement, but in fact poor results or ineffective results. But I could see campaigns that with mixing results or mixed results, but with a lot of learnings on the process, thanks to measurement. So I think it's not casual that campaigns winning awards on Cannes from Golling or Edelman also are winning at AMEC. I think that's proving something, that when solid research meets a great storytelling, a great story that we are telling, I think it's a winning combination.
Okay. Vinay, any basic table stakes missing for you?
I think I mentioned storytelling, but I think audience. I think talking about the audience at the start, audiences, sorry, at the start, and talking about them at the end. I think love the data headlines, and that's, you know, that speaks to some of the great approaches that a lot of people are doing, and the work that they're doing. But I think move the data headlines to then what this means for the audience. Most campaigns are trying to do something, and showing that evidence in terms of the audience is, I think it's just great for our profession, and it's great for kind of how we reach out to other audiences as well. Great.
Yeah.
All right. So
can I just build on that? I think that's such a good point, Vinay. You know, in a time when audiences are fragmenting and polarizing more than ever, we can't just say, oh, well, we just sort of blasted out some communication and look at these big impressions. It's back to that impressions point as well, isn't it? Let's always begin with audience. Who are you trying to reach? How are you going to reach them? What are you telling them? What did they think or do before your work? What are they doing after your work? And then there's just one other thought on what I would see as as basic table stakes is client buy-in. I mean, you know, work with your client and get a quote from your client saying, I had this problem and doing this campaign delivered me all of these benefits, and this is why it's a winner. You know, it just helps bring it to life. So how do we do that? Well, obviously you need to have a good relationship with the client. You need to get their buy-in to award entries early. So anyone watching live today, you know, the awards are coming again next year. Great time to be speaking to clients and senior people in your organization and saying, hey, let's get an award win next year.
Great. All right, so we have just a couple minutes left, and then I think, Julie, we're going to open it up to see if any attendees have any questions. But if you guys have talked about so many great things, you know, what you're seeing people adopting, what's frustrating you, some of these basic table stakes. There is one takeaway that you want to leave our audience with. What would that be? What is the one thing that you would tell somebody they need to do to write an award-winning entry? Kristen, I'll start with you.
I think I'd go back to just really being thoughtful about your submission and telling a strong story, you know, showing the impact that it has.
Okay. Vinay?
Yeah, to build on Kristen's point, storytelling, work from the audience and with the audience.
Aldo?
I think it would be to show a great connection between the entry and the material and the supplementary material. A brilliant entry must have also clear and appealing visuals in the other hand.
Okay. Richard,
We're
you had a long
human.
piece of advice, but what's the one?
We're human. Don't bore us. Help us. You know, we've got all these awards to read. Make it easy for us. Make it a pleasure. Tell a great story. Think about the human at the other end who's reading it and judging it, and make it easy for us to shower points onto your entry.
Great. Thank you. I want to open it to the audience for any, oh, we do have, wait, I'm learning how to use Zoom. So Jennifer, and I'm Sanchez, and I'm apologizing if I'm not pronouncing your last name correctly. So I don't know if you guys can see this. She says, thanks for the great conversation, everyone. Any tips on how to demonstrate the impact of AI for next year's entries, given that it'll likely be a key focus? Anybody want to jump in
I'll
and
have a
take
go.
that one?
I mean, hi, Jen, by the way. Obviously, I've worked with Jen at 2 organizations over many years, and Jen's one of the industry's leading lights. Jen knows this better than any of us do, that AI needs to be used appropriately, right? So what we'll need to be doing in the award entries next year is demonstrating how we use it appropriately to help solve a task. Now, at the moment, my personal view is that AI is great at accelerating some heavy lifting that we need to do. It's great at sifting and sorting. It's great at summarizing and sort of reductive things. It might highlight some interesting points of data at a speed that we're not able to do as humans or with other techniques. But let's explain how we've used it to still tell that meaningful measurement story, because the more things have changed, the more they've stayed the same. We still are trying to show communications professionals that they've achieved an objective. And actually, one of the great risks I think that the entire industry faces is there's so much hype on AI. AI can't do your media monitoring. It can't go beyond paywalls or sort out your licensing challenges. You still need specialist media intelligence companies to do that with their own specialist approaches. AI can't, at the moment, I believe, tell that meaningful measurement story that demonstrates value in the context of the objectives and the organizational challenge that you were looking to serve either. So let's keep AI real next year. Let's talk about it, all of us. I mean, it's a rallying call to the entire industry. Let's not over egg it. Let's not over pretend that we're doing more with AI than perhaps we are. And let's just keep it real in our award entries next year, because the judges can smell when it isn't.
Great. Anyone else want to add to Richard on AI? If not, we will move to the next question.
I just wanted to echo Richard's point. I think it's a tool like many others, whether it's summarization, whether it's analysis. Be clear about its place in the process.
Okay. So the next question is from Tim Zekin. And again, apologies if I did not get that correct. He said, thanks for the great insights. What are the most important elements for awards that award people and not campaigns, such as Young Professional of the Year, Executive of the Year, or Team of the Year?
Well,
did anyone judge those categories?
I did the Young Professional of the Year, and hello, Tim. And Tim, I think, is the boss of the winner of the Young Professional of the Year. So Tim, you should probably be answering your own question here. Congratulations to Ollie, who won the Young Pro this year. And I think Jen, actually, our previous question asker won it last year. So there you go. We've got 2 links to 2 of them here. I think it's to set out the benefits that these people have brought to the business above and beyond what a normal employee might have done. Why, the extra mile that people go. Personally, I find a lot of employees, I'll keep it broad, a lot of employees these days tend not to go the extra mile. There's many reasons. We could have a whole new webinar on why they don't, but lots of people don't, in the same way that perhaps I feel, maybe I'm just an old git, but that I feel that people used to 20 or 30 years ago. So let's celebrate where people are using initiative, hard work, they're going that extra distance. Let's make that really clear, and let's demonstrate the organizational value that they've brought to the organization. Make that really clear, and I think you've got a pretty strong entry.
Yeah, and I would just add, I did not judge the categories, but we've had the great fortune of having a number of individuals recognized, whether through Young Professional or Stacey Jaffe from Ketchum won it for executive this year. I think it's also, it's going the above and beyond, but like, what are they doing to help advance your business in a meaningful way? So thinking through the lens of like the impact that they're having. And then I think, Richard, you mentioned it earlier, the quotes from clients on awards. I think getting quotes and endorsements from leaders within an organization of why this employee in and of themselves is so impactful, I think goes a long way in that storytelling component of those individual awards.
100%.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? No? Okay, so with that, I'm going to make a very quick housekeeping plug before we close. The North American chapter will be doing an in-person networking event on Tuesday, December 3rd at the Park Avenue Kitchen by David Burke from 5:30 to 7. It will be hosted by AMEC for members, friends of AMEC, and future members. So we will get some correspondence out to the full North American chapter. If anybody from other chapters are in town on December 3rd, you are welcome to join us. And Jonna did post details in the chat. But with that, I do want to thank our esteemed group of panelists today. I know that, you know, doing these panels, carving out the time as an extracurricular as part of your day job it's a big commitment. So I do want to just say thank you to this crew for being so willing to jump in. And when I asked the question for you to participate, everybody said yes. So it was amazing. So really, thank you. I think that it's such great insights that you have given to both the live participants today, as well as those who can watch this via the video recording, as they think about, you know, next year and what they need to do to get the type of recognition that so many organizations receive this year. So thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.